Duterte throws hat into VP Derby. Ayuda distribution in NCR extended until end August. DOE ensures steady power supply as remote classes resume in September. Rody now says he's willing to accept Duque's voluntary resignation. Taliban ask US to stop evacuating skilled Afghans. GOCC returns 5.2 billion pesos to national coffers. And PDPLaban hopeful for goal lead. Good morning, I am Vernon Velasco and you are watching Tribune News on Q today, August 25, 2021. And here are the latest news of this Wednesday. The ruling PDPLaban on Tuesday confirmed that President Rodrigo Duterte has formally accepted the party's nomination for him to run as Vice President in the 2022 national elections. Cabinet Secretary and PDPLaban Executive Vice President Carlo Nograles said the President agreed to make the sacrifice and heed the clamor of the people for the continuity of his administration's programs. Nograles said Mr. Duterte reached the decision after being presented with popular calls from PDPLaban regional, provincial, and down to the barangay councils, aspiring for a transition of leadership that will guarantee continuity of the administration's programs during the past years. Party members, Nograles explained, wanted no breaks in President Duterte's campaigns against terrorism, communist insurgency, corruption, poverty, and illegal drugs, as well as the continuation of the successful implementation of the Build, Build, Build program and the 10-point socio-economic agenda. The idea of Mr. Duterte as a vice presidential candidate first surfaced in March this year when the PDPLaban National Council drafted a resolution urging him to seek the second highest government post. Since then, the resolution has been circulated among party members from different regions, local government units, and chapter nationwide. On 31 May, it was adopted by the party during its National Council meeting held in Cebu City. Despite the exhortation from officials and members of the party which he chairs, Duterte repeatedly declined to bite the VP offer, saying he wanted to go back to Davao City to retire after his 6-year term. On Tuesday, PDPLaban ended 5 long months of trying to convince the reluctant candidate to throw his hat into the political ring as a VP candidate. The deadline for the cash aid distribution to poor residents adversely affected by the 2-week lockdown in Metro Manila has been extended until the end of August, Interior Secretary Eduardo Año announced Tuesday. Año said the extension was approved following the request of local officials who needed more time to finish the distribution of the remaining 25% of the 11.25 billion peso worth of financial assistance to those who were affected by enhanced community quarantine in the capital region from 6 to 20 August. Of the 11.25 billion pesos worth of cash, which is earmarked for Metro Manila residents, 75% or 8.44 billion pesos has been distributed. So far, the local government of Caloocan is the sole city in the metro which has completed the distribution of its 1.34 billion pesos financial assistance to its qualified beneficiaries based on Año's presentation during the meeting. The assistance was released directly to the concerned local government units, which were in charge of distributing the funds to their residents who qualified as beneficiaries. They were initially given 15 days to finish the process. Similar to the previous lockdown last March and April, each qualified recipient received cash assistance worth 1,000 pesos. However, the amount would not exceed 4,000 pesos per family. Local officials were required to submit their fund utilization reports to the national government after the distribution process. Meanwhile, the Department of Energy assured unhampered delivery of energy services throughout the country amid the resumption of remote classes in September. In a press conference on Tuesday, Mark Christian P. Marolano of the DOE Electric Power Industry Management Bureau said that measures to guarantee the continuous power services are in place. Relative to the opening of school year 2021 to 2022, the DOE will assure schools and households will have an uninterrupted electricity supply for their distance learning platforms. The Department of Education has so far recorded over 7 million enrollees for basic education for this year. As of Monday, the enrollment figure released by DepEd showed that there are 7,000 249,765 students enrolled in both public and private schools, as well as in-state universities and colleges, local universities and colleges that offer basic education. DepEd said that the enrollment figure included the number of learners who participated in the early registration held from March to May this year. As of June 7, there were 4,557,327 who registered early for school year 2021 to 2022. The early registration covered incoming kindergarten, grades 1, 7, and 11 students only. DepEd, however, clarified that the latest enrollment figures only include the formal system so far. Tribune News on Q will be back after these reminders.
It's time for the world to know. Outstanding Filipinos in America. The 11th Outstanding Filipinos in America Awards 2021. A salute to the heroes of coronavirus. Coming back live in person at Carnegie Hall in New York City. Home of the TOFA Awards since 2011.
President Rodrigo Duterte made a 180-degree turn on Tuesday night, saying he would accept Health Secretary Francisco Duques III's resignation as the latter faces scrutiny over the use of 67.32 billion pesos in COVID-19 funds. It was different from his declaration last week, in which he said he would reject the embattled health chief's attempt to quit after state auditors flagged the alleged deficiencies in the Philippines' pandemic response budget. Duterte, however, was quick in saying that he won't fire Duque unless the latter was found guilty of stealing public funds. The president also reiterated that he would continue to stand by Duque even if it would smear his reputation. Duterte also reminded the cabinet member that the health department should continue its pandemic efforts even amid scrutiny. The health chief has long been under fire over his alleged lackluster performance in leading the state's coronavirus response. A Taliban spokesman on Tuesday said the United States should stop evacuating skilled Afghans and warned Western forces against extending the August 31 deadline for airlifts out of the country. The hardline Islamist group said Americans were taking Afghan experts such as engineers out of Afghanistan. The Taliban's top spokesman laid out a series of demands during a live broadcast Tuesday as US-led troops have ramped up operations to get thousands of people out of Kabul. The spokesman repeated the group's earlier announcement that the Taliban would not allow the US to extend next week's deadline for a complete withdrawal. President Joe Biden has said he hopes to stick to the August 31 deadline. He's set to pull out American forces, but he is facing pressure from European allies and Britain to go beyond the date. About 50,000 foreigners and Afghans have fled the country from Kabul's airport since the Taliban swept into power 9 days ago. That's according to the US government. The Taliban, who ended the 2 decades of war with an astonishingly swift rout of government forces, have been publicly tolerant of the evacuation force. State-run Philippine International Trading Corporation has returned a total of 5.2 billion pesos to the Bureau of Treasury in the first half of the year, the Department of Finance said. Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez said that they are in constant talks with the PITC in terms of the firm's unutilized funds and interest earnings, which can help plug the government's COVID-19 response funding requirement. In a report made by the Corporate Affairs Group of the DOF, military procurement accounted for 5.62 billion pesos of the fund transfers, while the procurement of various government agencies amounted to 16.6 billion pesos along with 450 million savings and funds due for return or earned interest. The finance chief likewise stressed that the state-run firm has returned 562.9 billion pesos in interest back to the BIR in December 2020 and made a hefty dividend remittance of around 500 million pesos in May 2020. Dominguez said in a letter to Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez that the PITC's interest earnings were recorded as the firm's interest income but should have been remitted to the BIR. According to him, such a request was in line with the government's continuous efforts to identify sources of fiscal space to finance the country's medical and social needs amid the pandemic. Tribune News on Q will be back. Stay with us.
Manong Joe po.
At Ate Maita.
Ngayong Hunyo, bahagyang tumaas ng 8 centavos per kilowatt hour ang overall electricity rates. Ito'y dahil sa dagdag singil sa WESM.
Alam niyo ba, pwede kayong i-update na Meralco sa text or sa email gaya ni Sarah G. Sisendan kayo ng advanced updates tulad ng upcoming bill details. Di na kayo kakaba-kaba sa paghihintay ng bills. At anumang mangyari sa bill, masira, mabasa, o mawala, no problem. To get updates, i-update ang inyong contact information sa Facebook Messenger, meralco.com.ph, email, hotline 16211 o Meralco Business Centers.
Handa kami makipag-ugnayan sa inyo para makapaghatid ng mas mabuti, mabilis, at pagkinhawang serbisyo.
Hanggang sa susunod na
Meralco Advisory!
You are still watching Tribune News on Q. While the candidacy for President of Senator Christopher Bongo is still up in the air, PDPLaban is crossing its fingers that the senator will heed the call of the party to be the running mate of incumbent President Duterte, who has already expressed his intent to run for the vice presidency in the 2022 national elections. In an interview, lawyer Melvin Matibag, acting Secretary General of PDPLaban, said that the senator is still lukewarm to the idea, but added that the party's executive council will be able to resolve it by 8 September, a month before the last day of filing of certificate of candidacy. Duterte, whom the party has given the leeway to choose his president, has been very vocal on several occasions that he wants Go to be his successor. It can be recalled that President Duterte's previous endorsement of Go in 2019 has largely influenced his senatorial win. Matibag acknowledges this Duterte magic, saying that it is in recognition of it that the party deemed it wise to let the president choose his president and nominated the senator to comply with the process. His leadership, says Matibag, his presence, it draws a lot of things and actually unifies the party. We recognize him as our leader who will continue what the party started. Matibag said, that's the case here. We see his overwhelming popularity. Whatever he says, the people follow. Matibag clarified conjectures that Bongo will just be a Trojan horse of Duterte should he win the elections and thus a way to circumvent the Constitution. Go will be in charge, but we have a strong leader in the person of the Vice President, Duterte. A strong moral compass, he said. It will be some sort of joint leadership. What we really are pushing is a party leadership. And that wraps up the stories this morning. Before we go, we would like to thank the SM Store, the Department of Tourism, Araneta Center, MG Motors, Hina Motors, Security Bank, and Overseas Community Affairs Council member Alan Lin of Republic of China for their continued support. Again, this is Vernon Velasco, and you are watching Tribune News on Q. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay home. Good morning.
Catch the latest news on our website, tribune.net.ph, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, TribuneNow. The Daily Tribune is one with the nation in facing the COVID-19 crisis, and in line with this, the Daily Tribune Digital Edition and Press Reader is now available for free online. You can also download the Daily Tribune app on Apple Store for iOS users and Google Play for Android users to get the latest and most comprehensive news online. Daily Tribune is also inviting everyone to join its community Viber Katribu to get updates on the freshest and hottest news and entertainment stories of the day. Tarcito emoticons are also available on our community Viber. Just click on the link in this video to join.